One frozen night can expose the difference between a sleeper cab and a very expensive metal lunchbox. The truck is parked, the engine is quiet, the lot is windy, and then the bunk heater quits like it just ran out of hours. No warm air, no comforting hum, just a driver realizing the cab is losing heat by the minute. Surviving that is not about acting tough for the camera. It is about sleeper layout, battery health, insulation, backup gear, and knowing when to stop playing hero and go find warmth. So tonight we're following what happens when the heater quits, the sleeper goes cold, and a driver has to rely on the truck, the gear, and the decisions that get him through one brutal night to morning. Subscribe to Smart Buy Motors, because out here trucks are rolling homes, mobile offices, and sometimes refrigerators with payment plans. Starting the cold run with the International LoneStar. This thing looks like a long-haul truck that found a jukebox, a hot rod, and a chrome catalog, then said yes to all three. But when the bunk heater dies, chrome does about as much as a motivational poster in a blizzard. The LoneStar still makes the list because of sleeper comfort. It was built with owner-operator appeal, and many were set up with roomy sleepers, better storage, and an interior that feels more like a road-going lounge than a punishment box. That helps, because the first survival move is not warming the whole cab, it is shrinking the problem. Close the sleeper curtain, separate the bunk from the icy windshield, block drafts around doors if needed, and turn the bunk into the smallest warm zone possible. The LoneStar gives a driver space to carry real winter gear, a proper sleeping bag, dry socks, gloves, base layers, an extra blanket, a flashlight, and power banks. The downside is complexity. A fancy sleeper, APU, bunk heater controls, and comfort electronics can become very unfun when they stop cooperating at 2 in the morning. Still, if the driver packed correctly, the LoneStar can become a decent shelter. Not the easiest truck to fix in the cold, but a comfortable place to survive while you figure out the next move. Next up in the frozen parking lot is the Volvo VN. The Volvo is not the loudest truck in the parking lot, and that is probably the point. It does not walk in wearing cowboy boots made of mirrors. It just quietly does the grown-up thing. Visibility, comfort, safety, and a sleeper layout that makes sense. In a dead heater situation, that practical design matters. The VN is the kind of cab where a driver can keep gear organized instead of digging through snacks, paperwork, and immortal gas station receipts while the temperature drops. A Volvo sleeper usually feels like a compact work apartment, usable bunk, logical storage, and a layout that supports a calm routine. First, check the obvious: bunk heater setting, battery voltage, ignition position, fuel level, vents, and whether the APU or heater is actually trying to start. Then, preserve heat. Curtains closed, front cab isolated, wet clothes off, dry socks on, hat on, sleeping bag around the body, not just tossed over like a decorative suggestion. The Volvo does not rank higher, because modern comfort systems can still be hard to diagnose roadside. But the VN deserves respect because it rewards calm preparation. When the heater quits, panic is expensive. Rolling a little deeper into the list, we get the Mack Anthem. The Anthem has that modern Mack look, squared off, serious, and just aggressive enough to remind you that it is still a truck, not a spa with mud flaps. Its strength is not that it magically survives cold weather better than everything else. The strength is the driver mindset it encourages. Mack has a reputation for toughness, and drivers who respect that usually understand that winter preparation is part of the job. Heater failures often feel sudden, but many are maintenance issues that pick the worst possible night to introduce themselves. Diesel bunk heaters need clean combustion, airflow, strong voltage, and regular use. APUs need service. Batteries need health. Fuel needs to be winter ready. If a bunk heater sits ignored all year and then gets asked to save your night in January, do not be shocked if it responds with a tiny click and a bad attitude. The Anthem gives a driver a modern sleeper with enough space to manage the emergency. Close off the bunk, layer up, avoid draining the batteries, and communicate early. The weakness is modern complexity. If sensors, controls, or an APU module are not cooperating, this truck may not offer much old-school roadside romance. But as a winter work platform, the Anthem makes sense. It is solid, comfortable, and built for drivers who know preparation is not paranoia. Now we pull into familiar territory with the Freightliner Cascadia. This is the truck stop default setting. Look across almost any big American parking lot, and a Cascadia is probably there. humming, resting, or being blamed for something by a guy in a Peterbilt hat. But that is exactly why it belongs here. If a bunk heater dies overnight, a lot of real drivers are dealing with that problem in a Cascadia, or something very close to it. Its biggest advantage is familiarity. Fleets know it, mechanics know it, parts are easier to find, and service procedures are not some sacred mystery carved into a rare European tablet. As a shelter, the Cascadia is practical. The sleeper curtain separates the cold windshield area from the bunk, storage is usable, and a well-maintained cab can hold enough heat if the driver acts early. But this truck also exposes the fleet truck problem. Some are well cared for. Others have tired seals, thin bedding, weak batteries, missing gear, or a mattress with military-grade trauma. In a heater failure, the driver matters more than the badge. A smart driver carries a winter kit: sleeping bag, thermal layers, gloves, hat, dry socks, flashlight, power bank, water, and enough common sense not to open the door every 3 minutes. You already know the weather. It is cold. The Cascadia ranks here because it is common, serviceable, and believable. It will not beat old iron for romance, but when you need parts, help, and a basic sleeper layout that works, common can be beautiful. Halfway through the cold night, the Peterbilt 579 enters the conversation. The 579 is where modern efficiency meets just enough Peterbilt pride to keep the owner-operator crowd from falling asleep out of boredom. It can be a polished fleet truck, or it can be spec'd into a very comfortable road machine. And, in a dead heater night, comfort is not softness. Comfort is control. A good 579 sleeper gives a driver proper storage, useful bunk space, and a cabin that can be managed without turning the night into a wrestling match with blankets and bad decisions. The routine is simple, but it has to be fast. Close the curtains, separate the bunk from the front glass, put on dry layers, cover the head and neck, keep the feet warm, stop opening the door, and do not keep cycling a failed heater until the batteries are flatter than a truck stop pancake. The 579 also brings up an important point. Idling is not always the magic answer. If the engine heat works, the fuel level is safe, exhaust is clear, local rules allow it, and the truck is mechanically happy, idling may buy warmth, but it is not a universal rescue plan. And no, a camp stove in the sleeper is not creative. It is how you turn a cold problem into a carbon monoxide problem. The 579 ranks well because many are kept by drivers who care. The truck cannot think for you, but a prepared 579 gives you a very good place to make smart choices. Climbing into the stronger contenders, we have the Kenworth T680. The T680 is close to the 579 in the modern long-haul world, but it earns the higher spot because a well-kept Kenworth sleeper can feel especially controlled and driver-focused. That matters because cold makes people stupid. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually. You start rushing. You keep trying the same failed switch. You waste battery power. You leave wet boots near the bunk. You forget that every open door dumps heat. A good T680 helps a driver stay organized, and organization is part of survival. The sleeper can be closed off from the front cab, essential gear can stay within reach, and the layout makes it easier to change into dry layers without turning the cab into a yard sale. This truck also highlights one of the smartest winter habits: warm the sleeper before shutdown. If the bunk area is already comfortable, and then the heater fails, you have a buffer. If you shut down cold and then discover the heater is dead, congratulations, you started the boss fight with no health bar. Battery health is another major factor. Diesel bunk heaters and APUs need good voltage to start and run. Weak batteries can cause repeated failed starts, and repeated failed starts can leave you with no heat and no crank in the morning. That is not a problem. That is a two-part mini-series. The T680 is not magic, but as a modern shelter with solid comfort, good layout, and real long-haul credibility, it absolutely belongs in the top 5. Now we leave the polished modern stuff and step into old-school advantage with the Freightliner FLD120. And that advantage is not luxury. It is simplicity. The FLD120 does not win because it has the newest sleeper electronics or the most refined interior. It wins because a mechanically minded driver has a better chance of understanding what is happening. Older trucks often give you more direct systems, accessible parts, and fewer electronic riddles. If the cab heat or bunk heat quits, the driver may be able to check fuses, switches, blower operation, coolant level when safe, heater valves, wiring, and whether the failure is in the heater or just the controls. That does not mean every FLD can be fixed with a wrench and confidence. This is not a movie where the driver taps the dashboard and America starts working again. But the FLD can feel more honest. You can often hear, smell, touch, and inspect the problem instead of arguing with a silent control panel. The weakness is that older trucks can be drafty. Door seals get tired, sleeper insulation may be limited, and some cabs leak cold air, like they are personally sponsored by winter. So the FLD does not automatically keep you warmer, but it ranks high because it supports self-reliance. When the heat quits, the FLD may not pamper you, but it may let you fight back with knowledge instead of just waiting for a laptop. Getting close to the front of the convoy, we have the International 9400i. The 9400i is not always the truck people put on posters, but working drivers respect machines that do not need applause to be useful. It is a serious highway tractor. Familiar, practical, tough enough for real work, and common enough that mechanics usually know what they are looking at. The 9400i sits in a strong middle ground. It is old school enough to feel understandable, but modern enough to offer a real long-haul sleeper platform. You are not trapped inside a rolling computer, but you are also not trying to sleep in something that feels like it was insulated with a handshake. The layout is straightforward, the sleeper is usable, and the truck feels like an honest workhorse. This International also brings up a survival detail many people forget. You lose heat below you, not just above you. If the bunk base or mattress gets cold, it can pull warmth away from your body. A smart driver layers underneath as well as on top. A blanket under the sleeping bag can help. Dry socks matter. A hat matters. Boots should be placed where they will not freeze into sad little sculptures by morning. The 9400i also reminds drivers to take winter fuel seriously. If a diesel-fired heater depends on fuel flow and the fuel system is unhappy, comfort disappears fast. Clean filters, winterized fuel, strong batteries, and a heater tested before the first brutal night are boring subjects until they become the only subjects. Not glamorous. Useful. And useful is exactly what you want when the cab is getting cold. Just short of the final mile, the Kenworth T660 makes a very strong case. The T660 is one of the best fits for this topic because it blends old-school Kenworth character with modern highway comfort. It is not as classic as a W900, not as new school as a T680, and not as dramatic as a giant custom sleeper. But that middle ground is the magic. A T660 gives the driver a strong long-haul platform, good sleeper potential, and enough familiarity to feel manageable. It is also the kind of truck many serious owner-operators set up properly because they actually live in it. That is a major advantage. Surviving a dead heater is not only about the truck, it is about maintenance and preparation. Kenworth pride often shows up as cleaner wiring, stronger batteries, serviced bunk heaters, better bedding, tighter curtains, better seals, and a winter kit packed before the first snowstorm instead of during midnight panic. A heater failure can come from something simple, or it can be the final chapter of neglect. Carbon buildup, weak voltage, blocked intake or exhaust, old fuel, poor connections, or a heater that has not been run since last winter. In a T660, the smart driver makes a quick decision tree. Can the main engine safely provide heat? Is the APU working? Is the bunk heater attempting to fire? Are the batteries strong? Is there a warm building nearby? How fast is the cab cooling? Most importantly, is this uncomfortable or dangerous? Hypothermia is not a badge of honor. If the temperature is dropping too fast, the correct move is warmth, not ego. The T660 ranks second because it combines comfort, serviceability, owner pride, and long-haul credibility. And taking the final mile, we have the 2020 Western Star 5700XE Custom Sleeper. This takes the top spot because when the heater dies overnight, the best truck is not just the one with the famous badge. It is the one that gives the driver the best survival environment. A Western Star 5700XE with a custom sleeper gives you room, storage, comfort, and the feeling of being inside a real rolling cabin instead of a metal box with pillows. The 5700XE already fits the long-haul mission with highway comfort and Western Star's tougher premium image. But the custom sleeper is the difference maker. A bigger sleeper can carry better bedding, thermal clothing, backup power, tools, food, water, insulated window covers, and emergency gear without turning the cab into a disaster scene. Space alone does not save you. In fact, a poorly insulated big sleeper can be harder to keep warm, but a custom setup is more likely to belong to a driver who lives on the road and prepares like it. When the heater fails, that driver can close off cold glass, tighten the bunk area, layer properly, protect hands and feet, check the basics, avoid killing the batteries, and call for help early without fighting a cramped cab. The Western Star also wins the psychological side. A driver with room to move, gear within reach, and a clear plan is less likely to panic or do something dumb, like building a heater out of a cooking appliance. And optimism. No truck replaces preparation, and a custom sleeper without winter gear is just a luxury freezer. But properly stocked and maintained, this Western Star gives the driver the best platform to turn a dead heater into a controlled emergency. When everything works, it is a premium highway machine. When the heat stops, it becomes something more important: shelter. And that is the real answer. Truck drivers survive dead heaters because they prepare before the problem shows up. They know their equipment, test bunk heaters before winter, keep batteries healthy, carry proper bedding, stay dry, close off cold glass, and know when the truck is no longer safe to sleep in. Chrome, horsepower, big stacks, and famous badges are great when the truck is rolling. But at midnight, in a frozen lot, with no heat coming from the vents, the real heroes are insulation, dry socks, strong batteries, good maintenance, and enough humility to go find warmth before the situation gets dangerous. Subscribe to Smart Buy Motors for more real-world truck rankings, road stories, and the machines that keep America moving even when the night turns against them.